8.1 solving quadratic functions by factoring section. So make sure you have your notebook and a pencil and take good notes. Remember, you can pause this video, work problems, and then unpause the check. And so let's take good notes and make sure we understand this material. Okay, so you learned how to factor in chapter 6. We're going to be using that to help us solve equations. So 8.8a says solve quadratic equations having real solutions by factoring. And so I can solve quadratic equations by factoring and determining the zeros of the function. So just to recap, remember that zeros are the x-intercepts of a function. All right, so let's take a look and just do a review on factoring first. So remember, when you have a quadratic like x squared equals 5x plus 6, you're going to open your parentheses, and then we factor the first term. The first term is x squared. So when we factor x squared, the only thing it could be is x times x. We do our sign rules, and we see that we have a positive and a positive. Remember, if this is a positive, we know the signs are the same. We look at the first one to tell us what it is. It's going to be plus and a plus. And then we factor all the ways it can multiply to be 6. Well, to multiply to be 6, we could have 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. But remember that it also, on top of multiplying to be 6, it also has to add to be 5. And the only one of these factors that adds to be 5 is 2 and 3. And so then we know that it's going to be 2 and 3 are our factors. And so once again, you can check it by doing the FOIL method. X times x is x squared. Our outside would be 3x. Our inside would be 2x, and that gives me 5x. And then 2 times 3 would give me 6. So then we know these are the correct factors. Now, our job today is going to be able to take these factors and find solutions that are our zeros. One more, why don't you try to factor this one just to get some practice and warm-up going. Pause the video. When you're done, unpause. All right, pause the video. Okay, so you should be back now. So remember, we're going to set up our parentheses. We're going to factor the first term, which is x times x, x squared. Our signs are going to be both negative because if this is a positive, we know the signs are the same. We look at this first one to tell us what they are. So they're both going to be negative. And then we want to do all the ways to multiply to be 5. And so we know that we could do -1 times -5, and that's the only factors that we have. Those factors add up to also equal -6. So remember, it multiplies to be this number, adds to be this number. And so we place those in, and you can do the FOIL method to check your work and see that it is this quadratic. Another way to check this quadratic to make sure it's right is plug this into Desmos on the first line, plug this into Desmos on the second line, and make sure those two things match. And if they do, then you know you have the right factors. Okay, so now let's get into this one we just did. So we know we already factored it, and we got to this point. Now I'm going to show you what the graph and the table of this looks like. And so what do you notice about this graph and this table? Well, if you said that we have zeros at 2 and 3, look at your table. I have zeros at 2 and 3. These are my x-intercepts. Now compare that to what our factors are. Our factors are x minus 2 and x minus 3, and our zeros are 2 and 3. And so you should notice that these things are opposites, right? If you have an x minus 2, you know your zero is going to be 2. So we're going to work on understanding why that happens. And so this is what happens. If I make my y value equal 0, you remember that anywhere on the x-axis, the y is 0. This point is the point 2, 0. This point is the point 3, 0. And so we know that that means that the y value has to be 0. So we can make y equal 0 in this and then solve both sides. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set each factor equal to 0. So I'm going to do x minus 2 equals 0. And I'm also going to do x minus 3 equal to 0. Now, when I solve this, when I add 2 to both sides, I get 2. When I add 3 to both sides, I get 3. And so that's what's happening. So the shortcut is when you see, whatever you see the factor is, the opposite is going to be your 0. All right, good. Now, if we look at this one, we can do the same thing, right? So the first thing I noticed on this problem when they gave it to me is that it was not in standard form. And so we want to make sure that this is in standard form. So I have to make sure my A, B, and C are all on the same side. A and B are on this side, C is on this side. And so what I needed to do is move this. And so if it's a -6, I add 6 and move that to the other side, and I end up getting this quadratic. We set up our parentheses. We already factored this in our first warm-up, and so you can see this is the factor. Now you should be able to look at this problem right now and know what the zeros are. You know that it's the opposite of the factors. And so if I have x plus 2, then my 0 is going to be a -2. If I have x plus 3, my 0 is a -3. All right, so we could set each one of these equal to 0 to do it algebraically, solve for both, and we would find out that it's true that x is equal to -2 and x is equal to -3. Once again, you can take this function right here, put it into Desmos, and then take your two factors, put it into Desmos, and then make sure they match. Okay, so I want you to try this one on your own and see if you can find the factors. So pause the video, and when you're done, come back and check. Okay, so if you already worked the problem, now we're checking. And so what you would do on this is factor first, and we would know that x squared is x times x, and then our signs are going to be opposites because this is a negative, and then all the ways to make -10 would be -1 and 10, 1 and -10, -2 and 5, 5 and -2. And then you wanted to find out which of those factors adds to be -3, and that would be -5 and 2. These multiply to be -10, and -5 plus 2 adds to be -3. Now, we're going to take that, we're going to set each equal to 0. And you should already, by looking at this, know what the factors are. My factors should be a +5 and a -2. Because remember that zeros are the opposite of what the factors are. So my zeros are going to be 5 and -2. But if we do it algebraically, we set them both equal to 0 and we solve, and we get x is equal to 5, x is equal to -2, just like we said. All right, let's try one more. Go ahead and pause, work the problem, and when you're done, come back. Okay, so you should be back now. So you should notice that when you factor this, you've got x minus 1 and x minus 5. If you need help with factoring, make sure you come to tutorials. That is a one-on-one practice conversation that we need to have, because if you can't factor, you're going to have a hard time doing this. Remember, we did factoring in chapter 6b 2 chapters ago, so we've got to make sure we got this down. Now, you should be able to see what the factors are here. You should see the factors are x equal 1 and factors are x minus 1 and x minus 5. And so you should know the zeros are x equal 1 and x equal 5. Okay, if we did it algebraically, we set it equal to 0, and we start solving. I would add 1 on this one, add 5 on that one, and I would get x equal 1, x equal 5, just as we mentioned. Okay, so that is the end of the lesson. And so we're only going to do when a is equal to 1 right now, and we'll add on the next chapter, we'll add when a is bigger than 1. And so if you need tutorial help, please come to tutorials and get the help you need. You need to complete your practice assignment, the 8.1 practice assignment, start checkout, and take it out the door. Make sure you do all of those things to prepare for your 8.1 quiz next class. Y'all have a great day.